Chris, there's a bit of confusion around this. This story broke yesterday on Stuff here in New Zealand, and I'll quote, they say that they understand World Rugby has privately acknowledged to the All Blacks that the ruling of Aaron Smith's try in the final was in fact outside the rules. The TMO interference shouldn't have happened because it was beyond the 2 phases. It was in fact 4. They're saying that, so I'm just trying to figure out where this has possibly come from. I noticed that it hasn't been widely reported anywhere else in the world, so it's either come from within New Zealand Rugby or the All Blacks themselves. But who exactly from World Rugby would be saying this? Is it Bill Beaumont? Is there a special division that handles this kind of stuff? Or is it one of those people that we saw at Roland Garros, the 20-something who sat there tapping furiously away at their computers and putting out press releases every day that nobody read?
No, they're probably still doing that actually. But
right.
What you do is you, as coaches, you can officially send in your videos. Remember, a certain South African coach called Rassie Erasmus is very good at this. And then you get a response from the World Rugby refereeing department on your queries. Now, that system of feedback, it has to be confidential because they are dealing with endless questions, and therefore, that they try and do it in the round. What's happened here is the feedback that New Zealand Rugby Union / the All Blacks have had included a number of answers to a number of questions, and they've chosen to leak this one answer. And from what I understand, it is being viewed as an undermining of the system, and one that may lead to a change in attitude, because if they're going to be open and honest about decisions, and we could be talking about 100 decisions here in a match, if they're going to be leaked on a sort of, well, this is a more interesting one than that one basis, then why continue with the process? That means the coaches won't get feedback, and it will stop what's being seen, certainly within World Rugby circles, as the throwing under the bus of Tom Foley, which is a comment that comes on the day that the Telegraph over here has announced that 200 incidents of referee abuse in 7 different countries, which happened during the World Cup, have been referred to each of those countries' law enforcement and government agencies. They used a group called Signify Group to identify the abuse. And quite honestly, what's happened today with this leaking, you can guarantee that Tom Foley will be roundly abused. So it'll probably go up from 200 to 220 incidents. And of course, it's ironic that World Rugby, did so much to try and protect Ben O'Keefe when he was being absolutely pilloried. And yet New Zealand have allowed another referee, this time a TMO, to be chucked under the bus. And no doubt he will face the sort of horrendous abuse that O'Keefe did.
Yeah, so why didn't they just make it transparent from the start and then stop all of this? I mean, it's not, the keys to the safe at Fort Knox, is it? It's decisions in rugby tests that everyone is talking about, everyone can see, everyone discusses. Surely it would be a much more adult way of behaving, is just simply having some people in front of a camera, in front of a press conference, questions can be asked, and then we can actually move on from it. But when it's all whispers and hearsay and nobody actually knows who it is on the other end who's conceding this or admitting it, and what exactly they have admitted, because it's all now third or fourth hand, I just don't know whether it actually does anything good or what comes out of it is actually what is meant to come out.
Well, of course, transparency would be fantastic, wouldn't it? But we don't get transparency for any of the individual unions, and so it's no surprise we don't get full transparency when you go right to the very top. And I'm sure the counter argument would be that if you're going to sit at the desk and take questions about the queries you've had from international coaches, and those queries run into the hundreds, then are you going to sit there and be allowed to go through every single one? Or again, are we getting back to this basis where we cherry pick individual decisions which didn't go the particular way of one particular country? Because that could be a very long press conference. Honestly, we're still talking about Andy Hayden jumping out of the line out there, which of course was absolutely appalling. But that only happened in the 70s. So goodness knows when we'll still be talking about 2023 final.
And look, as far as throwing the guy under the bus goes, I mean, I don't know whether that's a bit dramatic. I mean, the fact of the matter is people make mistakes, and these are very public mistakes, and your job is to get these things right. And if you don't get them right, it's like the VAR. Well, there's got to be a consequence, doesn't it? And some of those guys get stood down from Premier League weekends and so forth. And this guy, Tom Foley, who interfered outside his jurisdiction in a World Cup rugby final, there's got to be some comeback for doing that, doesn't there?
There will be a comeback for doing it, but how many weeks and months afterwards do you keep this going? I mean, it was a very sad end to the World Cup that the Cup final referee retires and immediately talks about the appalling abuse he'd had during his career, particularly at the World Cup, and he was very pleased to wave goodbye. We're not going to get referees who are willing to put themselves into this sort of situation if we go on like this. And yes, Tom Foley would have made mistakes, just like every single player on that pitch made a mistake. This one, ironically, was a mistake he spotted that the assistant referee should have spotted at the line-out, because that's what they're meant to be looking at. And that knock-on happened at that line-out right in front of one of the other officials. So then he made a mistake. So, apportioning blame in this situation is quite dangerous, isn't it? Because, you could argue the assistant referee got it wrong, TMO corrected them, but then, yes, it was 4 phases later, 2 more than you should have done. So, one right doesn't get away from 2 bad ones? Probably.
All right, as far as the social media abuse goes, what can actually happen from here? I mean, this is a great development, isn't it? Because as I've always said, it is only the cowards that do it. They do it hiding behind pseudonyms. And they need to be outed. Their names, their workplaces need to be outed so the rest of us can make conscious decisions not to spend at wherever it is they're working, which means that then their employment comes under huge scrutiny from their own bosses. This is how you're going to get this stuff to stop. So what is the next step in that process?
Well, I understand that World Rugby are going to publish their findings in the next couple of weeks. They monitored, according to the Telegraph, 571 players, 22 match officials on X, or formerly Twitter, and Instagram, in 35 languages, including emojis. And it's from those monitoring that they've picked up the abuse that was coming the way of various players and officials, and mainly the officials. And we are going to have this released, which is very nice, because they need to show everybody the actual extent of the type of appalling abuse that is being aimed at match officials. And, I'm sure that it will trigger similar things for football and cricket and other major games, where the guy standing in the middle or holding the whistle, who actually allows the game to be played, is given some protection, because we're hopefully, and I know it's your point is absolutely right, we're going to out these people. But of course, a lot of the keyboard warriors are so scared of being found out who they are, they hide behind made-up names. And until we ask for passport verification or some other verification to allow you onto X, we're going to have this problem of actually identifying the really, really dangerous people out there who make death threats, who say they're going to burn your house down and rape your wife, because that's the sort of thing they've been receiving.
At the end of this, what are we meant to make, though, of, again, back to the original point about World Rugby and any admission that they've made that the TMO got it wrong? He got it wrong. The game's over. South Africa won. It's done, isn't it?
Yes, and the answers to the questions from New Zealand / the All Blacks were given on the basis that it is over, but this is an explanation, as you've asked for it, of why the decisions were made in that particular way. And once you receive those answers, that's on the basis that you ask the question, therefore you receive the answers. It's not, great, now we've got it, let's get this out to the newspapers, because that's not the basis of how the system has been set up. You could argue there should be a better system where it's far more transparent, but we're talking about major organizations moving at a snail's pace here. The actual work they've done on identifying online abuse is actually done by a hare for the first time instead of a tortoise.